I'm just absolutely astonished. There are still people who think that Kevin Rudd can stay as their ambassador to the United States. Haven't they noticed that Donald Trump just got elected president? I mean, how can we have an ambassador asking President Trump for favours, a man who's called Trump a village idiot, a traitor to the West, the most destructive president in history, and much more, revelling in abusing Trump, and I think genuinely thinking in his delusion that Trump is insane?
I think the general consensus amongst anyone concerned with the public policy process, domestic or international, thinks he's nuts.
Now, if you were somehow under any illusion that Rudd doesn't have to go, just look at the past 24 hours. On my show, we had Trump's former White House spokesman, Sean Spicer, saying Rudd is going to have some problems now as ambassador and should be subbed out, he said.
Donald Trump doesn't forget these kind of comments.
And then came Paul Scavino, who's a senior advisor on Trump's campaign this year, former deputy chief of staff at Trump's White House, probably be a senior official again. He's in Trump's inner circle. Now, Scavino actually mocked Rudd by pinning at the top of his X feed Rudd's statement last week, announcing it just deleted his abuse of Trump from his social media accounts. And Scavino added just one thing, a gif of an hourglass with the sand running out. I've read an SBS story saying, oh, Trump advisor makes cryptic post about Rudd. Cryptic. I mean, an hourglass with the sand running out. That's cryptic? Even before this, we had Lara Trump, the incoming president's daughter-in-law, head of the Republican National Committee, and Trump himself, both saying, look, they might have trouble working with this guy.
Maybe we want to choose somebody else.
I heard he was a little bit nasty. I hear he's not the brightest bulb.
Yet, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who personally picked Rudd, his mate, his former Prime Minister, you've got Albanese still insisting Rudd is terrific and must stay. Why? Why? Can anyone say? I mean, in his very first phone call with Trump, Albanese was already begging the incoming president for a favour. I mean, please, Mr. Trump, don't hurt Australia with this big new tariffs you say you're going to put on imports.
I pointed out that Australia has, or the United States has a trade surplus with Australia. So it's in the United States' interest to trade fairly with Australia, but it's also obviously in Australia's interest.
Now listen, if Albanese now wants his ambassador to go to Trump to plead that case, please, Mr. President, don't hurt Australia, we're mates. Do you really think it's smart to send a guy that's called that president nuts, a traitor and a village idiot? I mean, really, on what planet do you think you're on? If you think that's how diplomacy works, that's how to get the best deal for Australia. Yet the excuses being made for not sacking Rudd. I mean, like Paul Kelly, editor-at-large of The Australian, I like him, but in the paper today, writing that people like me who want Trump dumped are suffering Trump appeasement syndrome and are, would you believe, unpatriotic. That wanting Trump gone shows a contempt for Australian sovereignty and a craven weakness before Trump. So bad that we must look like a sad, pathetic little country. Well, I'm sorry, Paul, but that sounds to me like it's written by a man who cannot cope with the fact that things have changed, that Trump has won. A man that, no surprise, Kelly has called a mean, loathsome, morally compromised person. I mean, guys, get over it. Trump's in, therefore, Rudd must be out. And to say that is not showing a contempt for Australian sovereignty. It is to show a respect for Australia's interests, to not insist on ramming Rudd down Trump's throat. Because to keep him is just pig-headed. It's not even as if, keeping Rudd in Washington is asserting Australia's values, asserting Australia's sovereignty. This is not like insisting on sending a female ambassador to a Muslim country. Doing that is defending at least their values of equality. But here, we'd just be defending Rudd's idiocy, his appalling misjudgment of Trump and his childish abuse. I mean, that's why we got, to risk Australia's interest for that. But in fact, Rudd fails in both key roles of an ambassador. He can't work with the country we send him to, and he can't interpret that country back to us. I mean, this ambassador to the US didn't even predict Trump's win. How big a fail is that? He clearly didn't predict it because he deleted his abuse of Trump on his social media accounts only on the day that Trump did win. Now here, Rudd's defenders claim, oh, well, Trump's not actually going to care about Rudd's past abuse because, look, Trump made J.D. Vance his vice president, even though Vance once called him America's Hitler. And Rudd himself has been trying to, float that line, saying, well, there's a whole range of people at a time have had a whole range of interesting things to say about President Trump. But here's the difference. Vance said, I was wrong about Trump. Let me explain why I misread him. I'm very sorry. He apologised. Rudd, who's famously arrogant, has done none of that. No apology, no recanting, no explanation how he got it so wrong, none of that. So for all we know, for all Trump knows, Rudd does still think he's a village idiot. And I suspect even Rudd privately knows he's not the man now to talk to Trump or his top officials, because he's even asked two prominent Liberals, former Ambassador Joe Hockey, former Prime Minister Scott Morrison, please come help me do this. Approach these people, which should tell us everything. Should tell us we should, look, just get rid of the middlemen and pick instead the best salesman for our country, and that is not Rudd. Kevin, you either crawl to Trump or you go home. You crawl for Australia or you leave.